remember the Four Noble Truths, and then remember, because the Buddha giving those Four Noble Truths, noble, why they call noble, because only Arya beings actually see how these truths are working. That's how they actually, they see directly how emptiness it cuts ignorance, how karma, the subtle workings of karma bring about suffering. All of that is known actually by Arya beings, but we can, at our level, infer how the Four Noble Truths are working. So all the Buddhist teachings are based on that, and because of the Buddha teaching at that time, those thousands of years ago, thousands of years ago, we are still practicing and achieving relief from our different kind of suffering states, the gross types of suffering, and then the subtle levels of suffering. And eventually, if you keep using that path, you'll also achieve the same types of liberation, completely from samsara for ourselves or full enlightenment. So from the Mahayana tradition, we're aiming for the full enlightenment, the Bodhisattva path, right? So all because the Buddha, through his compassion, taught us. Okay, so let's try to remember that as we read this sutra. So the Buddha, through compassion, seeing how beings are suffering, then seeing how suffering comes about due to this ignorance, grasping at inherent existence of ourselves and phenomena, put effort over lifetimes to train the mind in wisdom that cuts through ignorance. In having cut through ignorance and all the subtle levels, becoming an enlightened being, he became a protector, a savior of all beings. And that's why we hold this being as like a supreme being, supreme among humans and gods, because he cut through that subtle levels of ignorance, right? And Buddha becoming a supreme being, enlightened being, and of course with that comes all the qualities of the enlightened beings. And then he taught the Dharma. So Dharma can be scriptural and realization. Scriptural is what he taught, and realization is then how we use that teaching to develop our own minds and become realizational, right? And the Sangha can be, of course, the beings who achieved the first levels of the Arya path when they've seen emptiness directly. That's kind of an actual Sangha member, whether it's monk, nun, man, woman, doesn't matter. Whoever has achieved that is an Arya being. But then there's the conventional Sangha, which is typically the monks and nuns, etc. Right? So you see, the Buddha was all three. Buddha, supreme enlightened being. Dharma, so Dharma here means he had the true cessations of all the afflictions in his mind stream. So he was a realized being in terms of Dharma. And because of having that realization of emptiness, he was a Sangha as well. So Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Then, of course, we have the different levels of Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Right? So just spend a few moments reflecting on the kindness of the Buddha. And try to bring up in your mind the actual Buddha. So you see, for us, we're using a conceptual mind by thinking of statues and tankas or images we've seen, and using that as a reference, we bring up in our mind, a conceptual mind, a Buddha, an image of the Buddha, right, in the space in front of you. It could be life-size, it could be the size of the palm of your hand, but actually, we're actually referring to an actual Buddha. Yeah, so the mind is actually going through a conceptual kind of image to the actual Buddha himself. So think like that. Think the Buddha is still here with us. That Buddha that became enlightened so many thousands of years ago, that mind did not get cut or disappear, and it's still taking now the form. Of course, it can take any form, but it's still taking the form of the historical Buddha. So in the space in front of you, try to bring up the Buddha. Now think, as we recite the sutra, think of the mother next to you, mother, whoever was your main caregiver, grandparent, or whoever you felt connection with, to either side of you, mother to the left, father to the right, friends behind you, and all the others, billions, and humans, devas, animals, pretas, hell beings, all who have been our kindest parents in many, many lives, and we can't remember that connection, but they have been our kindest parents in many lives, protected our lives. They are still in suffering states, with no protector, no guide, no interest. So as we do the sutra, we think of them. We think, may we also now take refuge for all of them. May we also become a protector, a guide for all of these beings. And that Bodhisattva attitude is, no matter how many lifetimes it will take, I'll never give up that attitude. Okay. Then we'll recite the sutra. In Sanskrit, Arya Ratna Traya Anusmriti Sutra. In Tibetan, Papa Gunchu Sum Jesu Drempat Do. Homage to the Omniscient One, purified and consummate, victorious, virtuous and transcendent, thus gone, full destroyer, entirely perfect Buddha, full of wisdom. The blissfully proceeding, the knower of the world, charioteer and subduer of beings, the unsurpassable and teacher of gods and men, such is Buddha, victorious, virtuous and transcendent. He who is thus gone exemplifies the merit which is his cause. In him no root of virtue is ever worn away. Through his manifold patience, he is exceedingly beautiful. He is a treasure ground of merit, adorned with the tokens of enlightenment. He is graced with the flowers of the marks of Buddhahood. All he does is seasonable and opportune, and nothing inharmonious mars the sight of him. True joy indeed he gives to those who open up their hearts to him in faith. Through the brilliance of his wisdom he is confounded, and against his power there is no victory. He is the teacher of all living beings, the father of all bodhisattvas, the king of all superior ones. He is the guide of those who journey the city beyond affliction. His wisdom is unbounded. His assurance is beyond imagining. His speech is altogether pure, well-tuned and sweet to hear. Gazing on him, one is never sated. His body is beyond compare. By the realm of desire, he is unstained, and by the realm of form, he is wholly uncontaminated. He is not mingled with the formless. He is altogether free from misery, and from the aggregates, he is utterly and altogether free. The elements have no hold on him. He has mastery of all the sense powers. All bonds he has completely severed, and from all pain he is perfectly and totally released. No craving does he have. He has passed beyond the stream. Perfect is his wisdom, and in the wisdom of the Buddhas past, present, and to come, he has made his dwelling. In nirvana, where all suffering is transcended, he does not abide. His abode is in the very summit of perfection, residing in that place where he perceives all beings. Such are the sublime qualities that are greatness of the Buddha, victorious, virtuous, and transcendent. The sacred doctrine is righteous in the outset, righteous in the middle, righteous in the end. In its meaning, excellent, and in its words and syllables likewise. It is integral and unalloyed. It is all-sufficing, altogether pure and purifying. Well spoken is his Dharma by the victorious, virtuous and transcendent. It is a perfect way of seeing and is devoid of ailment. It is perennial and leads us onward. To see this Dharma is to fulfill one's purpose. The wise will see in it their self-cognizing wisdom. The Dharma spoken by the victorious, virtuous and transcendent, is shown to be well-tempered to the instruction and the needs of all. It drives us from samsara and causes us to go to perfect Buddhahood. It is free from contradiction, and in all its summarize, it is totally to be relied upon. It's the cutting of the root. The Sangha of the Mahana comprised of those who have well entered, wisely entered with straightforwardness and aptitude. Right it is to join our hands before them, and right to make prostration. They are glorious field of merit. They are the perfect recipients of gifts. They are the objects of offering. Everywhere and always they are the worthy of object to all offering. Thus ends the sublime sutra of remembering the three jewels. So just take a while, keep the mind on the Buddha, and powerful, if you can, imagine powerful rays of light coming from his forehead, white light into our forehead. Purify acts of our body from a beginningless lifetime. Red light, powerful light, laser red light coming from his throat into our throats, purifying our speech. Blue light rays coming from his heart to our hearts, purifying our mind from negativities of wrong views, covetousness, and harmful intent. And then simultaneously white, red, blue light rays coming, completely filling our whole body, our nervous system. Then you can imagine the Buddha and the space in front comes to the crowns of our heads, and he turns to face the same direction that we're sitting, and it becomes smaller and smaller. Then a very, very small image of Buddha, the actual Buddha, very small figure, enters through the crowns of our heads, slowly sinks down through the central channel we have, and settles at our heart chakra in the center of our chest. And again, glowing, radiating light rays, white, red, blue. And feel the blessing of the Buddha that will never be separated in all our lives to come from the Buddha's teachings. Have all the conditions to practice. Okay, then we read out in Romanian for those who can read Romanian. In the same sutra in Romanian. Go ahead.
Sutra într-o amintirea celor trei nestemate. Omagiu celui atotștiutor, curat și desăvârșit, biruitor, virtuos și transcendent, Tathagata, nimicitor al dușmanilor, Buddha întru totul desăvârșit, plin de înțelepciune, cel ce într-o fericire purcede, cunoscător al lumii, îndrumător și îmblânzitor al făpturilor, cel neîntrecut, învățător al zeilor și al oamenilor, acesta este Buddha, biruitor, virtuos, transcendent. Cel astfel purces întrupează meritul care îi este cauza. În el, nicio rădăcină a virtuții nu se veștejește vreodată. Prin nesfârșita sa răbdare este de o frumusețe desăvârșită. El este tărâmul comoară al meritului, împodobit cu podoabele iluminării. Este înzestrat cu florile semnelor trezirii. Tot ceea ce face este potrivit și folositor și nimic stricător nu tulbură vederea lui. Bucuria adevărată le dăruiește celor care își deschid inima către el cu credință. Prin strălucirea înțelepciunii sale este de neînfrânt, iar împotriva puterii lui nu există biruință. El este învățătorul tuturor ființelor, tatăl tuturor celor de pe calea bodhisattva, regele preanaltelor făpturi, este călăuza celor care călătoresc spre cetatea de dincolo de suferință. Înțelepciunea sa este nemărginită, iar încrederea sa depășește închipuirea. Vorbirea sa este cu totul pură, bine potrivită și dulce la auz. Privindu-l, nimeni nu se satură vreodată. Trupul său este dincolo de orice asemănare. Nu este pătat de tărâmul dorinței, iar de tărâmul formei este întru totul nepângărit. Nu se amestecă nici cu tărâmul fără de formă, este cu totul liber de restriște, iar de agregate este cu desăvârșire și pe deplin eliberat. Elementele nu au nicio putere asupra lui. El stăpânește pe deplin simțurile. Toate legăturile le-a tăiat pe de-a întregul, iar de suferință este perfect și total eliberat. Nu are nicio poftă, a traversat vadul. Înțelepciunea sa este desăvârșită, iar în înțelepciunea budașilor din trecut, prezent și viitor, și-a făcut sălaș. Nu rămâne în nirvana, unde toată suferința este biruită. Sălașul său este chiar în culmea desăvârșirii, aflat în acel loc de unde cuprinde cu privirea toate ființele. Acestea sunt prea înaltele însușiri care alcătuiesc măreția lui Buddha, biruitor, virtuos, transcendent. Dharma este dreaptă la început, dreaptă la mijloc, dreaptă la sfârșit, desăvârșită în înțeles și la fel în cuvintele și silabele sale. Este întreagă și nealterată, este pe deplin suficientă, întru totul pură și izbăvitoare. Bine rostită este dharma de către biruitorul, cel virtuos și transcendent. Este o vedere desăvârșită, lipsită de orice stricăciune. Este veșnică și călăuzitoare. A întâlni dharma e a împlini sensul vieții. Cei înțelepți vor recunoaște în ea propria înțelepciune care se cunoaște pe sine. Dharma rostită de biruitorul, cel virtuos și transcendent, se vădește a fi pe măsura nevoilor tuturor. Ea ne eliberează din samsara și ne conduce spre iluminare. Este liberă de contradicție și în ea totul este cuprins. Este întru totul vrednică de încredere. Este dezrădăcinare. Mahayana Sangha prinde pe cei care au pătruns bine pe cale, au pătruns cu înțelepciune, cu dreptate și cu potrivire. Se cuvine să ne împreunăm mâinile și se cuvine să ne plecăm înaintea lor. Ei sunt câmpul de slavă al meritului, sunt primitorii cuveniți ai darurilor, lor li se cuvine ofranda, pretutindeni și întotdeauna sunt vrednici de prinos. Astfel se încheie sublima sutră într-o amintirea celor trei nestemate.
Mulțumim. So now let's look at, although we're trying to imagine the Buddha always with us, always here in our presence, We don't actually see them. We don't communicate with them. So what Buddha does, he works through our guides, so we can think, especially now, of His Holiness, who just had his birthday recently. You know, it's like beings like that the Buddhas are working through. So you can think of His Holiness, you think of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, all the other lineage lamas you know, and you think especially of His Holiness. You know, for example, now to have our study groups here in Cluj, in Bucharest. You see, for Cluj Center was started by Marius Miku. So he met the Dharma originally, I think, in maybe the London Center. I can't remember, London Jamyang Center, the FPMT Center there. And then he had contact also with the Paris Center. There's a retreat center from which is connected to the city center, and he was working there, volunteering in that retreat center. And then, you know, he was inspired to take up the Dharma more. And then, having come back to Romania, he invited Venerable Rubina, so student of Lama Zopa Rinpoche and a student of Lama Yeshe. And when she came to give her first talks here, she was quite surprised by the interest of people here in Cluj. And she encouraged Marius to set up a center, well, a study group first, and that's what he did, you see. So try to, you know, go all the way back, how his center here came about, you know, I guess similar to Bucharest and Pitesti. There's a link all the way back to FPMT main centers, and they came about due to Lama Zopa Rinpoche and Lama Yeshe. And you connect that back to His Holiness. Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa Rinpoche were direct students of His Holiness. So His Holiness having, you know, doing the aspect of leaving Tibet at that time in 1959. And then due to that, Buddhism came out. Buddhism that was kept completely, entirely, the Nalanda tradition that was kept entirely in Tibet was then back out into India. And as the first Westerners met lamas like Lama Zopa Rinpoche and His Holiness and Lama Yeshe, Buddhism flourished. And these two lamas set up kind of an organization called the FPMT to structure the whole organization. So we're a branch of that. So all these study groups are branches of, in a way, of FPMT, and it comes from His Holiness. Actually, although His Holiness isn't directing us, you know, in a very manifest way, due to His Holiness having left Tibet and Buddhism coming out, and then Lama Zopa and Lama Yeshe also leaving Tibet, it's like a dependent arising. These centers. So you can see His Holiness is like a representative of the Buddha Shakyamuni, who we haven't got direct connection with. But His Holiness, we can hear the teachings, we can see him. Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa Rinpoche, some of us have had the opportunity to actually see him. And even now, we can get blessings by watching their teachings and videos. So the Buddha is still working for us through these beings. So unfortunately, Rinpoche showed the aspect of passing away. So some of you may have heard that some of these lamas, right? Some of these lamas can take on obstacles. You see, normally the Tonglen practice, you know, normally it's considered that you can't do that. It's impossible to take on actually difficulties of others, you know. But it is said that in very, very rare cases that some beings can actually do that. So there were instances in the 70s when His Holiness had life obstacles, and I think 3 lamas passed away very early. So they say, of course we can't prove it, but they say some of these lamas took on the obstacles that His Holiness would have had. They would have probably passed away earlier. So instead of His Holiness passing away, these lamas passed away. See? So I think Lama Yeshe is one of them. I can't remember the other 2. Yeah, there was some threat in Switzerland, and His Holiness was coming through Switzerland. There was going to be some issue there, and instead of it happening, they took on that difficulty by experiencing some sickness and passed away. So recently, I was with Geshe Tenzin Gendun, who was an attendant of one of our great yogis of the contemporary time, Geshe Lama Konchog, who did amazing years of retreat in Nepal. He's one of these lamas that in 59, when they left Tibet, he didn't come into India to continue studies. His teacher told him, you have to now do retreat. So he spent like 12 something years in caves in Nepal. Even Milarepa's past caves, he did a lot of retreat. He was one of Lama Yeshe's classmates. So when Lama Yeshe passed away, then this Geshe Lama Konchog came to Kopan and lived there, and then continued the work of Lama Yeshe by inspiring and transmitting teachings to the Kopan monks and nuns. So Geshe Tenzin Zopa was one of these monks in Kopan, and he became the attendant of Geshe Lama Konchog. So he came to Nalanda recently, and he kind of gave an interesting story, which I never heard, but who knows. So he said, what happened? Because he was there with Rinpoche in Nepal. It was up in called Sum. Sum is an area where Geshe Lama Konchog was doing retreat in the old days, like in the 70s stuff, So Lama Zopa, then as a nunnery there. So Geshe Lama Zopa had gone there, 2023, I think, to kind of encourage the nuns and kind of, because some of the nuns were finishing their studies. So he went there. So then he manifested this sickness, apparently, this altitude sickness. So it's a bit strange because Lama Zopa is from Solukhumbu, like the Everest region. How can a Nepali get altitude sickness? So of course, Geshe Zopa said, it can't be altitude sickness, really. I mean, of course, it looked like it, all the aspects were there, So what he said was that it could well have been Lama Zopa now manifesting this, taking on the obstacles of His Holiness. Because exactly at that time, if you remember, some of you, there was an issue of His Holiness with a child, that something had happened, and the people accused, or the press, right? The press accused or suggested that he had given some insinuations to a child, and actually, if you look, the whole story, the mother had no issues with it, nothing at all. She was there. The press took one little bit and took this whole scene out of context and made up. So that could have led to big allegations. I think even the CNN, I can't remember all the names, were going to document something about this event. And then Rinpoche, actually, so Geshe Tenzin Zopa said, on that day in Sum, Rinpoche gave a talk about how really heavy it is to criticize His Holiness, how heavy the karma will be, because, of course, for us, or maybe some of us or Tibetans, he is a living being, a living Buddha coming in a human form. So then to do anything disparaging against a being like this is huge karma, right? So it's almost like so sad that some beings have made these accusations. It's so, anyway, and then he manifested actually passing away, having this breathing difficulty. He was flown down to Kathmandu and he passed away. So he could have gone to hospital. Remember, he said, no, take me to Kopan. On the way to Kopan, he passed away, right? So anyway, I really don't know. Geshe Tenzin Zopa was with him, and he says, yes, so it's possible that this is one way of looking at Rinpoche's manifesting this incredible sickness suddenly and passing away. So it could have been that he was able to take on those kind of obstacles that His Holiness could have, had difficulties with, you see, because it could have been. Anyway, so let's think of Lama Zopa Rinpoche. He's an amazing being who just did such amazing stuff for the Dharma. So many Westerns got in contact, even some of us who haven't really met Rinpoche, we still get inspired by reading his books, you know, seeing little videos of him. Just this guy, just amazing character. So I was lucky enough. I mean, now I see I'm so lucky to have met him when I was in my early 20s. And that was so almost easy to see him, much easier than later on. And then I was in New Zealand, so I followed his advice to go to New Zealand. And New Zealand, I could see him much more easily. He was coming almost every year. I was so surprised because when he gave me advice to go to New Zealand, I thought, that's it. Oh my gosh, I'm trying to follow this Lama, and he sent me to the other side of the world. I mean, how can I see him now, you know? And actually, then he came quite often. You know, there was like retreats. There was a group retreats, which in those days, much less, maybe maximum 50 people. Later on, when I was in Europe, in France, they were like 200, 300 people in a group retreat, you know, so it became like very difficult to see him. But I was so lucky to have met him early on in my life, and he was one of my main inspirations for my Dharma practice. So, and of course, the FPMT centers are running under his, of course, Lama Yeshe also, but you know, I never met Lama Yeshe, and so somehow Lama Yeshe's culture is a little bit lost. So because Rinpoche took over his style in a way, right? So anyway, hopefully, you know, these centers are trying to bring the essence of Rinpoche's teachings, this experiential way of Rinpoche talking about Lamrim. So recently, when I was looking up videos of Rinpoche, he gave a little bit of introduction how these retreats started, because actually he said Gelugpa, they don't do these kind of group Lamrim retreats. It's very uncommon. So I think he said when he was in Lauda one time, he was reading a text. I think it was about how to practice Dharma purely, or not to get tainted by eight worldly Dharmas. If somebody remembered eight worldly Dharmas, yeah, that really inspired him. And then he asked Lama Yeshe permission to teach these group retreats, and that's how it started. All these Kopan courses. So many of you, some of you have gone there, hopefully, to Kopan, and you know how these retreats are done. You see, even now, very few courses are like this are happening. Like some people are asking me, you know, where these Lam retreats happen. It's not many, even Europe, not many. So some people have to go all the way to Kopan to do these 10-day courses, and then of course the famous November, December 1 month course, you know, and they're just drawing so many people because that way Rinpoche taught is still being shared, you see, in Kopan. So if any of you have the chance to go, please go, because you get a taste of what Rinpoche was trying to introduce to us, you see, this Lamrim culture, you know. Yeah, I mean, well, of course, he was a great tantric yogi, you know, amazing mystic, you know, but he was always going back to Lamrim, always going back to Lamrim, you know. So even my Geshe in Nalanda, you know, I mean, he's a typical Sarah J. I mean, like a satsa mold coming from a mold of studies that you must study and learn, you know. And then maybe one day you go into Tantra if you're ready, you know. So when he was first in France, my Geshe, my abbot in Nalanda, and Rinpoche was visiting, sometimes he would attend these initiations Rinpoche would give. And somebody translated because my Geshe didn't understand English because Rinpoche always spoke in English. So one of our monks translated from English to Tibetan. And then he was so impressed, you know, because Rinpoche, like, he gave one example in Barcelona. Rinpoche was going to give Medicine Buddha initiation. And it was a big, like a hotel lobby room. And, you know, it's like, I started like 10 o'clock, 8 o'clock or 10 o'clock in the evening, went all the way up to almost midnight when they have to come shut down the place. So we have to leave anyway. So Lamrim all the way up, bodhicitta all the way up. Then last 15 minutes, he ran through the initiation. Like he said, if anybody took the initiation, they must have been really lucky to be awake at that time. That's, so my Geshe said, that is the quality of a Lama, you know, who puts emphasis on Lamrim before taking these initiations and stuff, you know. So that's the way Rinpoche was always like trying to teach us. And yeah, anyway, so let's do the prayer for his swift return. So he's actually been reincarnated. So he told us the Dalai Lama has confirmed that he has actually been reborn. But we will I think the idea is to wait a few more years before it's actually identified. This, I don't know why, maybe maybe more auspicious or something like that. But so you see, another lucky thing, I mean, a good thing, is that, okay, Rinpoche did pass away, very sad, etc. But like Geshe Namdak, who's in the Dutch monk, who's a resident teacher in London, he was saying, yes, it is sad, but you see, he passed away at a time when His Holiness is still alive, and His Holiness has taken personal responsibility to look for him. So that's very fortunate that we have this guidance of His Holiness, who in a way is actually trying to do away with this whole Tulku reincarnation system, because he said that's this age-old thing from Tibet, etc., because the lamas get their land, their monastery, etc. So he's not so keen on bringing this back up. But he said for this Lama, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, we have to find his reincarnation. He was so beneficial for the Dharma, such a pure practitioner. And I think in public, he would say, this Lama is following my advice. Anytime I say something, he will follow it. He said, that's a perfect student. Yeah. So let's do this prayer for the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche. If you have it, I don't know if you have it on your, if you can put it on anyway, I'll read it. This one's composed by His Holiness. There were three composed actually. One was by His Holiness, then one was by Jadu Rinpoche, who was the abbot of Namgyal Monastery, which is the main monastery of His Holiness in Dharamsala, retired, so ex-abbot, but he composed the text. And there was a composition by Kondrila, who was also a very close friend of Lama Zopa Rinpoche. So there were three main prayers. Let's read his prayer by His Holiness. Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of victorious ones, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas. Victorious Losang, father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings, through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that's never discouraged. Incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make requests. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and from other living beings, we suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of three jewels, and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. So this is written by His Holiness. I compose a swift return prayer at the request of the centers of the Foundation for the Preservation of the Mahayana tradition in general, Kopan Monastery, Kopan Nunnery, and all the students of the late Rinpoche, headed by Roger Kunzang, whose Lama Zopa's attendant, who said that since the elucidate of the Buddha's teachings, the incomparable Zopa Rinpoche has suddenly departed to peace, a swift return prayer was needed. I also composed it because of our special connection, exemplified, for instance, by the fact that when Rinpoche was with us, he would consult me on his projects, big or small. Whilst it is devastating that Zopa Rinpoche has departed in this way, the most important thing is that when he was with us, he made the precious mind of enlightenment the foundation of his practice. And so, if his followers, who have been left behind, properly emulate the Guru's life, it is exactly that which will definitely fulfill Rinpoche's wishes. Therefore, keep this in mind, and from now on, also make requests to the Three Jewels and earnest dedication prayers. So in the same way, let's think of His Holiness, who is now actually still committed. He openly says he would like to, he will live to 130 years. So in the rest of those years left, may he be healthy, may his teachings resound like a gong in the world, the pure teachings for Dharma, as if the Buddha was still here. To all the directions where the Dharma has not yet spread, So the land encircled by snow mountains is the source of all happiness and good. All-powerful Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. We pray for the mind of bodhicitta, to rise the minds of all sentient beings. The minds of bodhicitta that has arisen never decline, but increase forevermore. And same with the mind of wisdom realizing emptiness, arise in the minds of all sentient beings. And the wisdom that has arisen never decline, but increase more and more. So generally for peace in all the world where there's fear, suffering, oppression, especially on this day where the merits are increased. So just by reciting the Sutra, remembering our gurus, remembering the teachings, remembering the power of the three jewels. So much merit. We dedicate that to all of these beings who don't have a guide, a protector, a teaching. They're lost in the ocean of samsara. And how precious our lives are for having found the precious Dharma and here the Mahayana Dharma and precious teachers. So let's do that one last dedication of so the dedication by Shantideva. Due to all this merit today, we've accumulated gathering here, the three study groups, and so yeah, of course, through the merit, may these three centers be harmonious, may all activities flourish here in Romania. More and more people who want to get in contact with the Dharma. May these three centers be a refuge of solace for all these beings. And may all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of these merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms, the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored in finding rest. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from my ailments. Whatever disease there in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid. May those bound be freed. May the powerless find power. May people think of benefiting each other. As long as space remains, as long as migrating beings remain, until then, may I too remain to dispel the suffering of migrating beings. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining.
We thank you very much, Master.
Thank you. Thank you for organizing.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much.
Thank you.
Very good idea to have the three centers to come together, even it's like this virtual meeting. It's very nice. I would encourage it, but what to do? People can't join, okay, but if you can, at least once a year, maybe like it's a good idea on these wheel turning days, maybe you can keep that as a project and we can join, just do something, some sutra reading, some mantra recitation, something, and remember, the kindness of our gurus, etc. Okay. Thank you very much, Silvio, Richard, Claudia, Yoshi, Gasto, all the others. I can't see now, but yeah. Be good.
Opusul. Good night.
Good night. Nocte bună, everybody.
Noapte bună.
Good night, good day.